It's super cold in winter. You have your cows in your barn, and they are sitting. It's dark in there, and they are in there for 6 months because it's so dark and cold. And then at some point in time, it becomes a Swedish tradition. This is when we let all the cows out of the barn to roam free in the paddock, and this is called a kosläpp. And this is classic, right? You have it, come and visit the Sigtuna Garden and experience kosläpp. And we do this as tourists. Like you take the children and you go out, and then at a certain point in time, you have the cow release, or kosläpp in Swedish. And it's a big thing. And if you want to define happiness, if you want to have a picture of happiness, it's how the excitement of the cows and how they're bucking around and woo!
Isn't it a similar quote from old Emil Lönneberga? Spring I benen, or you have some kind of...
Yeah, I really understand, me, myself, being a small-town boy, we have cows everywhere, more or less, not really around the corner, but I've seen it since I grew up, more or less. Someone makes it a tourist attraction. Someone was grown up with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Where are you grown up? Where did you grow up, by the way?
So I grew up in the province of Småland, Eksjö.
Eksjö. I'm from Småland as well.
So, you are.
From Kalmar.
You are? Yeah. Safe.
Jag kan prata riktigt kom med bröd och köra så här kalmaritiska, du vet.
Fantastiskt.
And now the joke was going into vacation times. It was on the news media that the way the Swedes are buying, vacation tickets. So everything is ramping up. We don't have enough staff, but people want to travel, and we have the major problems in Ireland and everything. And it's a kosläpp for vacation.
I never heard that term before, but I love it, Henrik, that you say that basically the people that take vacation now is a bit like a kosläpp, and they are just
And I'm one of them. Yeah, for sure.
Do you have any plans for the summer?
We have made a few plans. We have 4 weeks of vacation coming up. I would say we are planning a trip down to Skåne, which is the south of Sweden. We will probably go up to Dalarna, where my wife is from as well. So
where in Dalarna?
Close to, it's called Gustavs.
Gustavs?
Yes, Gustavs.
Ska vi se, vad är vi nu? Rättvik upp mot Mora?
Between Borlänge and something close up there. Yeah. Anyhow, so I'm really looking forward to it. It's very typical traditional Swedish summer, I would say.
So now then the next one. Do you have a strong midsummer tradition? Because Dalarna has fantastic midsummer.
Up there, it's very strong traditions, I would say.
In Dalarna, I mean.
Yeah, that's so we will probably celebrate the midsummer up there as well. Yeah.
And here comes the trick question: do you have a folkdräkt?
No, I don't.
And folkdräkt, I mean, like some parts of Sweden, you have the traditional clothing, and it goes with like very traditional culture and all that. And in Dalarna, it's super popular to do it. I remember going to a Dala-bröllop, a wedding in Dalarna. Yeah. And what is the coolest thing you can wear? Absolutely.
Folkdräkt.
The coolest thing, the 18-year-olds, the coolest kids in town. Folkdräkt.
Yeah.
Super cool.
I still remember, when I started Spotify, this is like 10 plus years ago or something, but they tried to get me starting a bit quicker from my old job. And the way they tried to lure me in is to said, if you can start earlier, you will be in the big Spotify's midsummer party. So this was actually the last year that they could actually arrange global
party.
Midsummer party for Spotify. All people flying in from all over the world to come here. And then seeing, we actually were running around like trees and doing små grodorna, blah, 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 and then doing the full dance and everything. And for Americans that never been to Sweden and seeing the idiotic Swedish going små grodorna, they were thinking,
what is this country? What are they doing?
That's great. And that's
I love it. I love it.
Party, I would say.
I love it.
It was fun time. But it's a weird tradition that we have in midsummer in Sweden, I guess.
Yeah, and is it, how old is it? Because it's some sort of, I would argue, almost pagan type. I mean, like if you look at the Midsommarstång and all that, where is the whole thing coming from? I don't know.
I don't want to speculate. Because I've heard some stories about what it's
supposed to look like. Yeah,
the symbol for it.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Phallus symbol.
Actually,
yes.
I have Actually, I have to brag a little bit about this because 10 years ago we started a tradition to celebrate Midsummer in Macedonia when I started the company there. And it's now 12 years we have been doing Midsummer in Macedonia. So all the employees, 100 employees, every year we are flying over, seal and vodkas, etc. And then we celebrate.
But you're doing it in Macedonia,
in
right?
Macedonia, right?
That makes it even
necessary. It's like
because it makes it even more weird because now this company has this strange party every year, and the other Macedonians don't know.
No, but it becomes like, when somebody does something and it's cool, then people start to mimic it without knowing what it is. It's really interesting.
Are you having like Swedish flags
as
well?
So stång, everything, små grodor.
Oh, okay, that's awesome.
We also have another tradition. What happened to the sound?
No.
Okay. Yeah. We also have another tradition here today, actually, which is the Almedalen tradition. And what's up with that, Gordon? Did you have some reason for that?
So Almedalen is, 1 month from now, Almedalen is the biggest, actually, what is called event we have in Sweden.
For the public sector, how would you frame it?
I would say it's not for the public sector. It used to be for the public sector. It's actually a gathering with all the politicians. They put the agenda for the year. And in the same time, you have all the public sector gathered. But since many years back, actually, the private sector and especially the CXO suite is actually there. So if you want to have one event that is seriously influencing or shaping actually the political and the public climate in Sweden, it will be Almedalen. Now you have a Järvaveckan as well, but it was Almedalen. So me and Anders, we were there in 2018, 2019, and Anders was telling me about this fantastic, what is called summer...
It's a special drink.
It's a special drink, right?
It's not something for sommeliers or people that are,
It's not for the snobs.
Yeah. So the idea was that there is a tradition of drinking rosé wine with Fanta.
Yes.
And to make the long story very, very extremely short, it was a fantastic night. So today, as we cannot be on Almedalen. And Almedalen is on 1 month. And
this is our last episode.
And this is our last episode. So today is Fanta Rosé for everyone. So that is it.
With that, I think we should make a small cheer for that.
Cheers.
It's a 70 episode.
70 episode.
Rounding off.
Yes. The last for the season.
Last for the season. The next one coming in September. So
Great.
Cheers for that.
Great.
Cheers.
Thanks.
There's actually a song for this. It's called like 1, 2, 3 Fanta och Rosé. Okay, I'm not going to sing.
Don't do that one. Don't go there. Don't go there. Like maybe we can do it at the after.
I'll stop singing here. And instead of singing, let me welcome you here, Jens Gyllving. We have been trying to get you on the show for quite some time, like half a year, I don't know, for a long time. But you're finally here.
Yes.
And it's awesome to have you here for the season finale that we do have today.
Correct.
And in my view, actually, you are one of the most experienced, I would argue, people in Sweden that have, so much experience from various large organizations, very famous organizations.
Yes.
Specifically in how to drive like data and AI initiatives.
Correct.
So with that, I'm very much looking forward to hearing more and learning more from you and your experience.
Thanks. I'm humble. Thanks. I know you have a lot of experience as well, and I'm looking forward to this podcast, and finally be here.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
With that, let's start with talking a bit about who is Jens. How would you describe yourself for people that haven't heard about you or your background? Who is Jens?
Right now, I'm working at Electrolux as head of the global data platform. Yes. In fact, my career really started off back in the days when I wrote my thesis together with a friend of mine, Anders.
Not me, but another.
Another Anders,
Yes.
in fact. We were studying in the US, and we came across some very interesting topics. And when we got back to Sweden, to Växjö University, we sat down and we started drafting our thesis about why use data mining. And that's really, what caught my interest to this domain.
What year was this approximately?
So this was the spring of 1997.
97.
So I would say I've been around since 1997 within this domain. It's been quite a time. So
as how should we call it? There is a term for this. The silverbacks.
Silverbacks.
Unfortunately, you don't have much silver in your hair.
No.
No, he's not a proper silverback. He's
So I don't color.
You don't?
No,
So
I
it's-
don't. So
Okay.
yeah,
Anyway,
I'm lucky.
I think anyone 20 plus in the business is acceptable to be called a silverback, even though you still don't.
Yeah,
have
and it's this whole thing. We've been going through the we call it data mining, and now we had the databases, the data warehouse. I mean, like the whole journey here, right?
A lot of buzzwords.
A lot of buzzwords all the way through.
Yeah, I like that. The more, the merrier.
Yeah.
So in 97, you started to work with the other Anders, and that was Växjö University. Before it was called Linnaeus as well. And, I was actually working in Växjö and Kalmar University at that time as well.
Yeah,
And later in
Same
Linnaeus.
province.
Yeah, and it's nice to have another local from Småland here as well.
yes.
So that was your introduction into data science, or how did that interest start building up?
No, I would say, at that point in time, it was eventually not called data science. It was more like general business intelligence, I would say. So I started off my career for a major consultancy firm that really built my platform within the area. So I was working with BI in a different industries.
And we had but the term BI was there.
Yes. Or eventually, yes, I would say so. Yeah.
Because
I think Howard Dressner invented the word or recaptured the word in 1984 or something like that when he was working for Gartner. So I would say, yeah.
Or it was a decision support systems at that point of time. No.
Eventually, yeah. So yeah, but we kind of meet together with some really great colleagues. Started to ramping up the BI activities at that consultancy firm. Yeah.
Right. And can you name some interesting highlights from that time? Some companies or some project that was formative in some way?
Yes, I have. In fact, I have a great memory. We did the first version of decision support for Apoteket, the pharmaceutical one.
Oh, interesting.
So we were working directly for the CFO, and at that point in time, S-Base was very heavily used, like MOLAP, multi-OLAP cubes.
Of course.
And so I started off there, and then I kind of pulled an old colleague of mine, Niklas, together to that assignment as well, and we kind of was working very closely together to build the first version of decision support for Apoteket.
Mm-hmm. And where was this used? Decision support in relation to what type of? Do you remember? It's a long time ago.
Yeah, I know it's a long time ago, but the first experiences is you stick. It's like glue, more or less. So we came across some challenges, technical challenges. So we had to split the different cubes, if you put it that way. Into, I think it was 5 different cubes, I would say.
With different types of focus.
I mean, for people that don't know this, it's just interesting to have some kind of educational part of this as well. And if you were to compare OLAP versus OLTP or OLAP versus OLTP, how would you describe the difference?
Online transactional processing compared to OLAP cubes. That's a good one. The OLAP transactional processing, it's more the transactions, that are being aggregated. The cube itself at that point in time, at least, you had to load all the data into the cube, and then you had to compute the data into the cube to prepare it for analysis.
Would you agree that one way to phrase the differences is that the purpose of OLTP is more for operational purposes, and you have relational databases to just make the applications work themselves, and OLAP is more for analytical purposes, and then you can.
That's the way you distinguished it at that point in time. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I remember I gave some courses in this 20 years ago as well. It's
But I think the terminology OLAP, OLTP is relevant, and I think this is still a discussion. And one of the debates are they converging?
Ooh, I think there are different ways. I think there are different ways in a big data era to work with data that does not potentially include star schemas and cubes and dimensions and fact tables, etc., that they had at that time.
Correct.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Could you elaborate a bit more? If you, in your current position, you were to have some more analytical system support, and we shouldn't. Sometimes we use a lot of buzzwords, and it can be like data lakes, and it can be data warehouses, it can be data lake houses, data march, data meshes. There can be so many different things. Do you have a preferred way? If someone that is not knowledgeable in how to build an analytical platform, and now you're head of the data platforms there as well in Electrolux, how would you say the proper terms to use is at this time? It's a hard question, I know, but
it's a tricky one. At Electrolux, we have decided to democratize data by using a federated approach.
Oh, interesting.
Federated meaning in this sense that we're trying to rely on the different parts of the organization to onboard the actual data platform.
Right.
Okay. And this is a modern data platform that are using the data lakehouse technology.
Lakehouse.
Yes, and trying to explain that it's like a bimodal approach by saying that one part of the actual data platform is a data lake, and the other part is more typical data warehouse or data march or something like that.
So a single system to handle them both,
yes,
instead of having two separate systems.
Exactly.
A single lake to rule them all.
Yes.
No, but I think the main challenge has always been like when it's too far distance between, what has been the sort of the lake technology, the big data stack, and data warehouse technology completely somewhere else. And now we figure out how can we compartmentalize data warehouse use cases or design patterns as part of the bigger platform. So we can talk about platform, and within the platform, we have different design patterns for different purposes.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a very important to remember, because you need to enable both traditional analytical reporting, dashboard, typical BI.
They're still useful. We still need these reports.
Absolutely. I would call it the bread and butter solutions.
Even if you do a machine learning and operational AI,
but then when it comes to the key differentiator, it's more about the data discovery. It's about the AI, advanced analytics, and then you need to dig down to the sea of data, more or less, and which you can find more in the data lake side. So
let's not dig too deep already. It was my fault. I started this topic.
It's a little bit like you've been what do you call it? I need to have a technical conversation. I haven't had a technical, so you
I feel starved.
You starved
for technical discussions.
But I'll add it as a topic, and later we get back to Electrolux. What the future will look like there, and the current strategies that you have.
Want to frame one of the topics.
Yes.
I want to explore the definition of what makes up a platform.
Yes, I love it as well. I add that.
That's hard.
But I like it because
we'll do it
I actually like the term platform much more than data lakes.
Yeah, but what is what constitutes a platform?
Awesome. Let's get back to your background as well. And you mentioned that you started to do the studies that you had in Växjö in 97, and then moved forward and you did some consultancy.
Yeah.
You worked with Apoteket. You had some kind of OLAP
experience.
Experience.
No, and of course, I came across some other industries. I spent a lot of time working in the telecom industry as well, for a major company here in Sweden. So during my consultancy years, I came across a number of very interesting companies and industries. But what I felt was that, when it came to the more strategic decisions, most often I would say you as a consultant, you were not in the same room, so to say. So then I decided to make a switch over to line organizations. And, I've been working in different positions there, mainly as a manager or director or so.
That's an interesting topic in itself. And we've touched upon this before. But if you were to just try to list the pros and cons of working as a consultant versus working directly in a line organization, how would you phrase that? What are the pros and cons you would say of working? I guess both have pros and cons. But how would you describe the pros and cons of that, working as a consultancy or line organization?
I think that's a very good question. And it has struck me a few times throughout the years. Working as a consultant most often means that you work with people who are quite specialized in what are they doing. They really have the domain knowledge. And also, when you are on an assignment, to some extent, you don't have to bother about the politics.
Right.
I think
that's a pro, or is a con?
Yeah, I would say that's a pro.
Yes.
From when you're in a consultancy situation, I think that's the most beneficial one, I would say. Yeah. So you can just leave and you can laugh and you have some. And
some people may not understand what you mean with that. They think, are you speaking about in different democratic parties or something, or what type of politics? But I guess what you mean is that there are politics basically in any kind of large organization.
Yes, I would say so. Absolutely. When it comes to, who's really the one to make the right decisions and there's always people driving their own agenda, eventually.
And we have per default competing agendas in a large enterprise. So it's always a balance of these agendas.
Yes.
So as a consultant, sometimes you can be very efficient because you don't need to be in all these different stakeholder conversations, but you can focus on the task and deliver on a very set task.
Yeah. So swinging back to your question, Anders, I think that's the key benefit with the consultancy. And within the line organization, I think it's more that you're part, if you're lucky, I would say that you're part of all the strategic decisions and you have better insights on, the long-term perspective. But also, I was going to say something else. Well, you don't have to think about really, invoicing and charging and stuff like that. Many people, at least in senior positions, when you're working for a consultancy firm, you have both a delivery and eventually some kind of sales activity that you need to attend to. So,
Yeah, and since I'm a bit biased in this question, I'm trying to phrase myself properly here. But I certainly see there are pros and cons with both type of roles that you can have. And as you said, being part of the actual more long-term strategic decisions and actually seeing things through and being able to own it and feel this is actually something that we have done.
Yeah.
And are trying to really drive through is a big pro, I guess, of being part of the line organization, right? Yeah. And what do you think? I mean, you have been part of that as well.
My reflection and what I would like to have Jens' view on is our understanding for consulting and how consulting should work changing? Or should it change? And I think you're onto something here. Like we have had several guests. Daniel Engberg was onto this as well. So when we say consulting, like you have a big spectrum here, right? You have some people who are really much. I'm a strategy consultant. Daniel came in in 8 weeks we do an IT strategy. Whoa. We work like our asses off. We do something amazing in 8 weeks, and then we do the next one again somewhere else, and we never get to see. This is one part of consulting. If I take my own consulting I've been doing lately, which is almost based on the fact that I hate consultants. It's this problem, right? That no, seriously. The problem is more and more. I think that. I've been on both sides. I've been consulting for a long time and then been on line organization many times. And then when I come back now and more on the consulting side again, my outlook on consulting is very different. And I think what I'm trying to say here is that I look at myself and how I was acting or thinking when I was young and consultant then. I'm going to go in and save them. It's this hero mentality as a consultant. And when I've been on the other side, that is completely shattered. It doesn't work like that, right? So now I'm very much into the core idea that the company needs to own their change. And any consulting or any support you need can never change that. So to me, the template for what consulting should be all about now is something else, right? I'm here to.
It's more a partnership.
It's a partnership. It's very long term, and it's basically not von oben. It is really not von oben. It's a little bit like, okay, how can I make you succeed, and how can I then work through you? How can I empower you? Type consulting. And now this is on one layer, and then we come to, okay, we have a real problem here. We need to supplement with some talents in gaps we have. Okay, fix that. But I think the core mindset here is that to become data and AI driven, what we are talking about, you need to have your own people doing it. And then, of course, they need to hold someone's hand sometimes. Yeah, but it's different, right? It's different.
You can't really outsource your change.
I don't think so.
No, you
Never.
can't.
Absolutely not.
I think it's easy to cheat yourself a little bit, that it's easy to bring consultants on board. It's more that you need to eventually sometimes do both, but you need to build up your own staff and your own people as well.
But thinking from a company or organization point of view of why or why not to bring on consultancies, I guess one thing is that it is really hard to find senior talents in the data space.
Yeah.
And if you want to get started quickly, it could be a good way to get bootstrapped, right? Or to get quickly started. Or what do you think, Jens?
I would say my experience is it's all about networking, having a good network. You need to take care of your reputation. I think it's important that the best evidence is when you have old employees want to go back to you as a manager. I think that has happened to me a number of times, which makes me proud and also humble. I think that's very important to be successful in this area.
Yeah. I fully agree.
And it's we all know how difficult it is to recruit the right people for the right level or roles. So you need to be very, you need to give it some time, so to say,
But in the long term, you want to own it, I guess.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
But I think your question there, from my take on that, is that what is really shifting is the fundamental objective and mind shift. Why do I bring the consultant in? Do I bring that person in to solve it for me? I don't want to know about it. And then, almost like, okay, outsourcing, I would argue, mental outsourcing. Yeah. Or do I bring someone else to help me build something that I should own? And that whole mindset is a game changer in terms of how do you procure and how do you set up the relationships. That is not for you to have a managed service with me over time and make yourself indispensable. It's basically to make yourself redundant as fast as possible.
Yeah.
And I think you can do both.
I think so, but it's all about understanding your sourcing strategy as well. I think that's very important, that already from start you understand, okay, this is some kind of target model that we want to work with.
Exactly.
And if we kind of kick off with the staff augmentation and co-manage to move over to managed services, it could vary depending on what area you're working with.
I think that answer is spot on. And what I give an example, snapshot, a little bit what we did at Scania, where we, of course, in our team have used consultants, and I was an interim manager, so I'm a strange one, right? So I'm an FTE in the management books, so to speak, but I'm an interim manager. But for all purposes, Scania, right? And we built a competence ladder, like a transition ladder, where you can kind of see, now we have 80-20 like this, and then how, in what roles, how do we, what is our sourcing, what is our ladder in order to absorb that into Scania. And we did that very deliberate. And we did that with IT roles where we're going to have these Scania IT resources in Södertälje, we're going to have these Scania IT resources in Pune, and we're going to use consultants in this way. And I think the sourcing strategy mindset, as you highlighted, if you have that, then you can be relaxed in around how you use consultants.
Because it really boils down to what kind of strategy you need to when you are recruiting and attracting talent as well.
Yes.
Interesting. But going back then to your consultancy days, and then you moved into a line organization. What was the first company that you moved into from a more line organization point of view?
Real estate. It was Vasakronan.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Vasakronan.
So I would say that's probably my only, job experience where I not purely worked with analytics.
Yeah. So, so what does that mean? What besides analytics did you work with there?
We was kind of retransformation of the IT side, meaning that we kind of procured new financial system, CRM system, portable mobile gadgets for the technicians out in the different real estates. So in a later stage, it would have been more analytics, but at that stage it was like transplantation of your heart and lungs and everything from an IT perspective. All the core systems needed to be replaced more or less. But it was a great experience, absolutely.
Should you do a reorg, both in terms of data analytics or AI, at the same time as you do a bigger like general IT kind of reorganization, or how do you think you should do that from a
reorg perspective? Or?
Yeah, from what's the process? I mean, should you start with reorging the whole IT infrastructure that you do have, how you run the legacy systems that you may be running, or should you do that in parallel? Can you actually start quickly in parallel to move into a more data-driven analytical kind of initiative, while at the same time perhaps reorging the rest of the IT organization?
Yeah, so if I understand you correctly, it's like the whole company or the business, or just the analytics department?
Yeah, or the whole, at least the IT systems or the different type of IT, systems that may be supporting the finance that you may having, the supply chain that you may having, the warehouses that you may having, the whatever, the sales that you may having. Yeah. All of them have different IT systems that are supporting them.
I would say there is no general rule of thumb. So it's all dependent on the actual situation. I think if you start to drive a lot of concurrent changes at the same time, it's a bigger risk.
Yes.
So I would say that if you try to minimize the risk, it's better. But of course, I've come across cases where you are like changing a lot of the IT landscape. For instance, when I was working for Axfood, we had a major SAP implementation at the same time as we were like changing the analytics landscape at the same time, meaning that we wanted to consolidate the data warehouse for a new one. So sometimes you're lucky and you don't have too many parallel things at the same time. Sometimes you need to just accept that there is a lot of things going on at the same time.
But let me that's quickly to continue on this topic, because I think what you say is, for one, important, which is trying to minimize the number of parallel changes that you are trying to succeed with at the same time. But then if you look at the two extremes, one extreme could be change everything separately and in parallel in extreme. And that, of course, is very dangerous and has a lot of risks to it. The other extreme is, let's take one system at a time, and let's put the data and analytics in the end. So we first have to have a fully compliant and modern kind of systems for the rest of the organization. And then later we start to be more data-driven and BI and potentially AI-driven as well. I guess that's dangerous as well if you go to that extreme.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think reality maybe something in between, I would say.
But without naming any names, in as you say, we need our network.
Yeah.
So I was talking to someone in our network.
Yeah.
At one of the in the finance industry. Let's leave it at that, and then not go more specific than that. And I think he said it really well in relation to data platform or transformation. And it was that really challenging Tetris puzzle to trying to organize order of attack of things when you go into large enterprises like we have been working in. We're talking 200 initiatives, and they are sort of, how are they interrelated, and is someone depending on the other one? And the summary is that whatever you do, your ass is always behind you. Yeah, you're screwed, right? So how can we? So I think then connecting that back. Now we're talking complex, right? How do I minimize risk? And I think to manage parallelism, or and not for the whole company, but for the teams. I would argue that for the teams, if they're running on too many objectives or initiatives at the same time, it's really hard to prioritize.
Yes, it is.
So for the individual team, depending on where you are, here we want to be more sharp, right?
I think what's key here, especially when it comes to enterprise size of companies, I think like program or portfolio management is extremely important to be able to understand the big pictures and break it down to the smaller project levels and see how everything is connected, really. If that's lacking, then you're in deep trouble.
Oh, now here we have a pet topic of mine, and it's. I think this is absolutely key, how we navigate our investments in our opportunity landscape. So key. And then I think there's a huge paradigm shift here, how we have done it project-based, business case versus now much more product-oriented value streams. So there's a shift here, how this portfolio should look like and work, and there's a clash going on in the big corporate. So this is a really interesting topic if you want to go deeper later on why do we fail.
Yeah. Why do we fail? We certainly have that as a topic. So, but okay, interesting, and finding the right balance there in how to proceed with a transformation that I guess so many companies need to have, and you've been part of that in so many different places as well, and finding that balance between the extremes in some way, in either doing it in sequence or in parallel, or finding somewhere in between to optimize the portfolio, or how should we phrase it?
No, it's like it's this topic of investment steering for the short to mid to long term, for the immediate gains to something that scales. All these dilemmas, right? It's so many different dilemmas, and so you're balancing agendas. That's what this is all about.
Yeah. You're right.
I have an analogy that I like to use. Do you remember how we play the game Labyrinth?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so this is a big game of Labyrinth.
Yeah, you're right.
That's what it's
moving in 3 axes.
In 3 or 4 axes. I don't know. Yeah. 3 but it's not bipolar, right? It's not short, or the dilemma is to calibrate on several axes at the same time.
You're right.
But I think also, one dimensions of those 3Ds potentially is the long and short term dimension. And I think one challenge, at least in my experience, is that if you only make huge investments long term, like in 5 years, we will have this kind of awesome system that everyone will enjoy. And that I would argue would be a super risky thing if that's the only thing you're doing. If you only do the other extreme, very, very short-term investments, you never find the big scale-up effect that you can do if you do more long-term investments. So both extremes, I would argue, and please disagree if you want, is dangerous. So what you need to find here as well is the balance between how can we make investments that pay off only in long term, many years ahead, and at the same time find short-term gains. Find, in a couple of months after doing something, we actually start seeing a value for this in the company. If we don't see that short-term, the risk is that we are investing so much in things that we haven't even tried out and turns out to be completely useless because the whole company had changed at that time, or who knows.
I think what you're saying is key. And I think this is the one of the most important areas when it comes to analytics in this area, because it usually drives a lot of cost and investments. So based on my experience, I would say it's very important that you use your strategy as an enabler and as a communication package to explain the direction where you're going,
right?
Like in 2-3 years from now. But what you need to do as well, you need to break down the strategy in value cases, analytical value cases, and package that and make it very clear. So that's the key, in my sense, to a success. Okay, and because then you can start outlining, and you can use different streams where you deploy value for the business. It could be like analytical insights. It could be increasing the data literacy as well for the business, educating them. I remember when I was working for this major insurance company, I had a great team, and we fill up this auditorium only inviting the business, okay? And it was like a show, more or less. We had really cool music playing. We had some cool animations. We had, through my network, I invited a very good public speaker. And then I had the rest of the team presenting, they did just a fantastic job. I'm so proud of them. And it came out really, really, really good. So you can do different things to show this value and how you package it over time.
But I really want to emphasize one thing you said here, right in the beginning, and I just want to check if I understood it right, because I think this is quite profound. The challenge is, if we look at this bipolar, we need to do the big steps and we need to do replatforming, like some roadmap, and then we have our operational use cases where the real value is over here. So what you're saying, when we are taking this big direction and breaking it down, we always want to use the real use cases, the real value creators as the vehicles, and then we kind of want to. I'm gonna string out the story around the use cases and the value we're creating, and then I'm gonna use that as the vehicle for fix that part of the platform, and then I'm gonna fix that part of the platform. Do you see? Is that sort of what you're meaning?
Exactly. I think that's very important to stress out. So let's say for this insurance company, we picked out a few value cases. It was completely technical driven from start, but then I pulled the handbrake, the brake. And then we sat down with the business and we decided upon, what are the true value cases that we can deliver. And we were kind of, creating a thin slice throughout the whole platform, the whole architecture, to just deliver that, more or less, to be able to very rapidly show the value for the business.
So, and this is so important, right? Because if you do it in this way, it actually gives you an order of attack how to build your platform just in time, value use case, by letting the vehicle of the use case drive the platform scaling.
But what's key is that you really need to have a very good blueprint to work from.
Yes.
So it's like, you will build your house and you will build your garage or whatever, but you have that blueprint in front of you. And then you decide, okay, to bring some value very quickly, just start with a piece of it, more or less. It could be the garage in this case, maybe a bad example, but it's just that you need to understand the overall picture, even that you're just creating a small slice of the architecture.
We are so in sync on this, and sorry for stealing it.
Yeah.
But because if you have the house analogy, we have the blueprint, we know we're going to build the blueprint. And now I have a problem. I need to move into this house, even if it's not built yet. So we're going to make some hard choices here. Okay, we really need our toilets, we need our kitchen, and we need one room where all the family can sleep.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that first. Let's cut out that slice of the platform of the house. And then we can add, the living room and the cinema room we can do last.
No.
But I think that's a great thinking.
Yeah, I think that's really the deal breakers when you talk about successful cases in this area, and you only learn by your mistakes, of course, And
having the long-term vision, but also the way forward towards it, which may not always go in a straight line, so to speak, right?
Exactly.
You can take some turns, but it still should be at least in the direction of the vision that you have long-term.
But I think you highlight then the problem is how many has a decent blueprint? I mean, we have it, right? But do we have it in the way we need to have it in order? Because if you have it, you don't need to have it to the nitty-gritty detail, but you kind of need to have something in order to make those prioritizations, decisions.
I would say it depends on. I mean, I don't have any figures on how many or how the percentage, of course, but I think the cases I've come across that is not very successful, they don't have the good blueprint in place.
So they don't have anything to make the decision against.
No, really, and if you really want to talk about that part, I think the blueprint should really support the overall business needs in creating insights and analytical use cases. So to some extent, you need to, the way I usually think is that my starting point is, okay, what's the need for the business? Okay, what their insights, analytical capabilities do they want to drive over time? Some parts of it might be known, some parts might be not known. So you need to rely on leading practice. Okay, so looking at the best players out there, what are they doing, and steal with pride. Okay, but when you have an idea about that, you can use some different techniques to do that. You can build this analytical framework that kind of displays the capabilities and the insight areas very well, and can be used together with the business to understand, okay, what part should we start with, what's the priorities, etc. When you have that in place, then you need to, okay, so how can we deliver that? And that's really when technology comes into play, and technology today, that's not really a problem, more or less. It might be the case that you need to understand what technology is the best one.
The problem is which.
Yes, exactly. So, and maybe from a cost perspective, which is what fits best in the overall strategy for that company, more or less. But so it's an ecosystem that needs to work together, I would say.
Yeah. Awesome. And that really was cool. A great discussion about how to reorganize both the IT but also data and AI in sequence or in parallel, and different ways going there, having a long-term vision and then a path, sometimes crooked path, but at least a path in the same direction.
It's never straight though. Yes. For sure.
Yeah. Oh, I'm eager to do a pride joke here, but I don't go there. Okay, awesome. And you've been at so many places here, and I'm trying to avoid having to go through all of them.
No, you don't have to. That's fine.
But you mentioned, I think, the insurance use case, and I guess that was from Folksam as well.
Yes, correct.
Right?
Yeah.
If you still, you've been at so many interesting companies like H&M and Oracle, and Arbetsförmedlingen, the employment agency that we have, etc. And we of course going to focus on Electrolux more later. But if you just were to give some highlights, perhaps, from your background at these kind of companies, anything specifically that you can mention about them? Perhaps differences, the pros that they have, something that highlights, what is specific for H&M, Oracle?
In general, I would say, every company I work for has given me a lot of fantastic experiences and a chance to meet great colleagues. Because everything has really boiled down to the person I am today from an experience point of view, and that's, to me, that's very valuable. So I would say the first real strategy that was developed was when I was at Axfood.
Yeah,
and I think that's a very important period in my life, because we created a lot of value, and I was very fortunate to recruit a whole organization, more or less. And I have a very good relationship with a few of those employees still. So that meant a lot to me. It's a great company,
And Axfood, what do they do?
That's a food retail and wholesale operation, so to say.
And a Swedish company as well.
Yes, it is. I would say probably the second largest in Sweden.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How many employees do they have today?
I don't know. I'm not up to date to the numbers, but I guess they are right behind IKEA. So,
really?
yeah.
Interesting.
But that's a great company. Maybe I'm trying to move around a little bit from like line organizations to moving over to the dark side. And what's the dark side? It could be Darth Vader.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I spent some time working for Oracle, and to me, yeah, that's the dark side. No, I'm just kidding. No, I had the opportunity to work for Oracle for quite some time.
So we have about 10,000 employees in Axfood today.
Okay, it's excellent. When we have some support here on the right hand side. No, but I think that was very valuable for me, because I got some more insight how it works working for the software industry, like the leading edge of technology. At that point in time, it was a lot of talk about the engineering systems. Larry himself, that he said something about, cloud is just, no, that's not our way to go. Oops, really? Sorry, I did a mistake. Anyhow, but that was very valuable, and interacting with customers. I think that was one of the reasons why they wanted to hire me as well, because I had a very strong presence in customer interaction. So I learned a lot from that, and how important it is to take care of your customers. Not really to get that signature on a piece of paper and everything, yeah.
And Oracle, of course, is an American company as well, and Larry Ellison, he's also
very American.
But he's a famous person, of course.
Well, he's the epitome of the American dream.
Yes.
But given that you worked for this kind of American company, of course, with an office in Sweden, I guess, at that time.
Yes.
How would you describe the differences between, what's typical for an American company versus a Swedish organization?
It's a little bit difficult to compare Oracle's office here in Stockholm, because I think they were very much sales oriented. Yeah. So, if you compare to their headquarters and other offices in the US, for instance, they have a lot of product development and engineering and stuff like that. But here in the outskirts, in the north, it's more of sales and eventually some kind of marketing functions, And but there is my impression was really it's a lot of individuals driving their own path, more or less.
So,
and
is that typically American, you would say, or
no, I don't know really, but the incentive was really money, bonus, and that was how the structure was working, more or less. But I mean, maybe there's a big change going on in American companies as well right now, and even driven by the pandemic itself. You have a lot of people working from home in a different way. At least to my understanding from my time in the US, I have both relatives in the US, and I spend a lot of time there, through my university studies as well. So the mindset is very much that you spend a lot of time at the office, but it doesn't mean that you are efficient all the time when you're at the office. There's a lot of face time, so to say.
I think we have to, given how many quotes and quotations we give to Elon Musk, we have to add one more here. And he said something, I'm trying to remember how he phrased it recently, which is...
Just the other day, I guess.
It was something...
Get in or get out.
Yeah. I mean, something, either you come to the office or you don't work for us. Or I'm paraphrasing, but exactly, something like that.
Yeah, you're right. I saw it as well.
Yeah. What do you think about... I guess Elon Musk is not a typical anything. It is atypical in every kind of sense, but... It's very non-Swedish, at least, to make that kind of statement, wouldn't you
say? Yes, I would say so. I think he's very, very challenging as a person, no matter what, really. He's not like the ordinary type of guy. No. Now, given the situation after the pandemic, it's a little bit bold, I would say, to stress out your opinion about something like that. I think every company today is have understood the value of having working from home, so to say.
Do you think? I think he thinks 2 steps or 10 steps ahead all the time. I saw some quotes or some paper saying they had to cut the number of employees at Tesla or something, and this potentially could be one way to do it. Do you think there could be any way in that, or otherwise you would think that a CEO's primary goal is to be able to recruit talents, and this doesn't sound like it, but it could be a strategy to actually be able to cut out the worst.
It could be,
but I have a little bit of comment because regarding this, if you saw that there were 2 emails that he actually sent, and the first one was take it or leave it situation, and the second one when he explains why. Yeah. And in the second one that he's explaining, and in the explanation it says that basically you should be reminded that I was sleeping in the factory for many times, so I can present an example for all the people that are there. We are here to build a very good products, and the only way how we can build products is basically together. So it's a great statement, but also it's a little bit, as a CEO, for me, I think it's a very emotional thing to explain yourself in that way, that because I have done it, now you need to be in the office. So I think it's a very much emotional type of a decision making rather than PR, which is very typical for him before, considering his tweets to make at night, how about Twitter and things like that.
I just want to make a small reflection, and that is, we have had a couple of comments on social media from different various sources, the whole debate, how much should we be in the office? And for anyone who is not sort of, the world's richest man and the most innovative man right now, whatever how we can define it, typically, if someone says, we need to be 5 days in the office or 2 days in the office or 3 days in the office, boo, you are so old school, blah, blah, blah. And then it's interesting now when someone who is sort of personified as cutting edge in all areas, from thinker to execution to what it's doing and how it's innovating. So it's a little bit like when he said it, it's a little bit like, I thought it was a little bit funny, because it's almost like I read something much more mild tweet or something in the same neighborhood, we should kind of be in the office, and it was completely booed out. And then because he said it, oh, he's God, maybe there's some value to this.
God.
And what I'm trying to say, it's just reflecting over.
If he was in Sweden and he said that, you will see.
It would be a stronger reaction.
It would be a stronger reaction because here we are also, we are more decentralized in our decision making and culture and consensus, and so it wouldn't fly, right? And in Sweden, people would walk. But I was just reflecting over the herd, how we are thinking about this, and then when the right person says something, it's easy to latch on. If I take the final comment, it just shows how tricky this question is in terms of balancing how do I build culture versus how do I have the maximum value and life balance for an individual. So there, I mean, like there are so many facets why you need to go left or right on this question.
I mean, once again, it's you can see pros and cons of working in the office or not, and it's a really difficult choice. I don't really have a good answer to this. Do you have any thoughts about that? What do you think, given the post pandemic times that we do have, how would you prefer an organization to handle working from home or not?
I think, after spending something like 1.5, 2 years working from home, I really appreciate meeting my colleagues. Spending time together, just stand there together in front of a whiteboard or whatever, just interacting together. I think that's made me value that even more. But then at the same time, I think it's important to give an opportunity to work from, a flexible environment, that allows you to work from home as well. I think that's super important because some companies that I worked for has been extremely old-fashioned, meaning that if you're not at the office, you're not working. And with modern technology, IT and whatever, you that gives you a lot of opportunities to do a lot of work from home. And, at least from my point of view, I think I even worked more during the years of the pandemic than before.
I've seen some studies claiming that you actually are more productive when working from home.
Yeah.
But who knows?
But sometimes it's not a good thing either because, the line between work and home is not that clear, so to say, and that's really what you need to be careful about, I would say. But so I would say if you offer your employees working from home like 2 or 3 days, that's great.
But I have the final recommendation to Elon here.
Okay, give it.
I think Elon should consider this problem with his own. He should take his own medicine on this first principles. So if you truly break down this problem to the core mechanics, what are we really after? Do we really care about where you work, or do we care about visibility? Do we care about culture? Do we care about interaction, human relations? So what do we truly care about? And then, breaking it down to the first principles, how can we solve it given the tech?
Yeah.
I think you don't end up everybody in the office anymore. I think you end up with something else. First principles on the problem. That's my recommendation to Elon.
Yeah. Final thing here. I think that also there is quite a lot of strong movement that it will support this, because if you see this work from home is not for everyone, right? So you will have some functions that needs to be in place, and there are some function that doesn't need to be. So basically, it's benefit for one, but disadvantage for the other.
Exactly.
And I believe that his approach to this, although emotional type of a decision making, I would say, it's because he doesn't want other people to feel less valued. And there is a very big, and we did like a lot of conferences now since the pandemic on people analytics, when there is like factual data behind like that the performance is increasing, during working from home, but the sense of belonging is decreasing.
Right.
And then the life work balance is also it's mixed up, and then you have like early burnouts. And people basically, just because they feel they attach and they work a lot and there is no more basic life work balance, it's a little bit, we are fighting with a new monster. But the thing is that what is the balance? I think that the balance is actually that people should have like an opportunity, maybe 1 or 2 days to be at home, or if they have like something that they need to work to be at home, but still it cannot be disadvantage for one and advantage for the other one, because on the end of the day it should be like car. If you have a car, then you basically, depending on which type of a car you want, right, you own it by the company, you get taxed for it. So if you're working from home, and this is not a proposal, probably if you want to be in fair for all, if this is considered as an advantage for one and disadvantage for the other, it needs to be balanced in some other form.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I agree. I mean,
everybody's driving Tesla cars.
You can work in a Tesla car as well, much easier, especially if it's full self-driving, right? I just watched the beta version, 10.12.2, I think it was, and it's amazing how fast it's improving. Okay. And I think you can certainly work from the car as well as from the home or in the office.
If the interior is good.
Yeah. You don't think so in a Tesla car?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. And that's an interesting discussion about, working from home or not, I think. But going back a bit to the highlights.
Yeah.
And you spoke about Axfood and you learned a lot about how to do that. You spoke about, going to the dark side a bit as well.
Yeah. Star Wars.
I still don't see how Oracle, I can guess, but let's not elaborate perhaps more of what you really meant on what the dark side really means. But it's certainly, I can see a different experience than some of the other organizations you have worked for.
Sure.
Any other highlights that you'd like to mention that you worked for before Electrolux?
I think I just want to, I just wanted to wrap up different areas. You have line organizations, you have the consultancy industry, and you have the software industry, I would say, and everything kind of connects to each other, within this area, which has given me a lot of experience from different perspective, which is beneficial, of course. So maybe I should wrap it up a little bit, where I started off with a major consultancy firm, because that was really where everything happened, more or less. So it was a great place to start working, especially when you're quite green, coming directly from...
Was this Cap?
Yes, Capgemini.
Capgemini.
Yeah, and they invested a lot in education. I had some awesome, really, colleagues, and had a great opportunity to build up this competency area with them on a national level within BI then, and also to apply this, at different customers in different industries. Gave me already then, a quite early understanding on the differences from different industries. And what I've heard quite recently, in fact, is that we are quite unique, and we this is how it works here. Yeah. But I'm sorry to say that it doesn't work like that, based on my own experience, because it's the same problems, it's the same questions, everything comes back, but under a new logo type, And
couldn't agree more. Even if it's
what's your opinion? Because
I think we said that right before the show started. We're standing up in the staircase, and I said, we've been doing this now for a while, and we've been working in different enterprises, and right now I've been a long time in Scania, working very intensely only with Scania, and lately I've been sort of talking to the network quite a bit again. And my strong feeling is that, generically, where is the market at? Where is our maturity in Sweden at? And then so it's different now to 2015 or 16 when we started Data Innovation Summit. But right here and now, this year, 2022, where our headspace is at and where our real problem is at. I think is the fundamental problem is very, very, very similar. Now, the difference is the context, how to solve it, the tactics, how to maneuver.
The gameplay.
The problem is the same.
Yeah.
The gameplay is localized based on the local, what industry, what strategy, what use cases, what politics, decentralized, centralized, tech stack, on-prem, off-prem, cloud-prem. But the problem is the same, but in order to understand the gameplay, you need to go deep, really deep on each company.
Yeah, I can agree more. There are different things that you need to tackle in a good way, but the actual problem, we don't get access of our data. We can't do all the right analytics that we need to do, etc. That's about the same, I would say.
Yeah, and it has shifted fairly. My hypothesis is my spawning. My what do you call
your
it?
view or
spawning.
Actually,
no,
my current sort of insight. My insight is that it has shifted a little bit, quite a bit. Now we have the whole cloud situation, and before we didn't have that. So based on what is happening on the major driving forces in innovation, in technology, machine learning, and AI, we're shifting the game here, sort of thing. But across the board, we are now kind of working on the same problem. It's that simple.
I agree completely. I mean, now we see this shift going from on-premise to the cloud, but I still see and hear a lot of applying the same way of thinking when it comes to cloud as with on-premise. So people have a hard time to understand how, like for instance, like the data architecture is working in symbiosis with the platform architecture, and how that drives cost. Because I think playing with the cloud, you understand, what kind of performance you get, but the cost of it might vary. So when I was working for the insurance company, I always take this as a very good example how it could end, because we were about to, not my organization, but another one. They were arranging like a hackathon, and that was really an awesome thing that they did. So fantastic, and they were doing that for one day just before the summer, I guess, and they kind of leveled up all the performance and everything on the cloud environment, so it should be really, really fast. And it was a great a great day hackathon. A lot of people participated in everything. But then, hey, what? Bye-bye. I'm going on vacation.
Forgot to squeeze it back down again.
Yeah. So what happened after the summer? One of my employees, he said, "Hey, Jens, you need to take a look at this. This is really expensive." So someone forgot to turn down.
Yeah, the 2-month hackathon.
Yes, so the hackathon, from being one day, it became like, I don't know, 2.5 months.
2.5 months of max performance.
Super expensive. And it was just to pay, more or less.
And the bottom line here is that with cloud comes new ways of thinking and new ways of governing. Simple as that.
Yeah.
But just going back a bit to the statement potentially that I guess data and AI transformation is surprisingly similar that we started speaking a bit about. And I guess one similar problem is moving to the cloud or using cloud services, and not just doing lift and shift as we've spoken a bit about before, that you take the old services and just move it to the cloud, but not really changing anything and not really making use of the high-level services or whatever that they are having, and all the managed services that they do have. But I would like to ask one other question that as being a silverback, even though you don't have any silver hair as well, but you have also experience from a number of companies. I would argue also, because it is surprisingly similar, as you say, that also it's a very similar experience, is that people always think the grass is greener on the other side of the river, meaning in some other company, and they always think my own backyard is horribly dirty. We have technical debt that is horribly bad, not as and it's much worse than any other company, and we are not really gotten onto the data and AI train yet at all, but every other company are so much further ahead than us. And then you go to another company and they are saying the exact same thing, I would argue. So it's and I guess, Provan, do you agree with that? That so many companies think that their own backyard is much worse than it really is?
To some extent. I mean, there are some companies that are like living in a new world of cloud, where you don't have all that legacy. There are some cases, maybe eventually some industries that are living with the COBOL systems and stuff like that, which is kind of tricky to mitigate, and how to address. But I think you're right. I think that also shows over time an experience that the grass is not greener, more or less.
Like if you're born in the cloud era, so to speak, and start with using the cloud or some more modern kind of cloud technology, private or public, then of course you are much better off and don't have the same technical depth that I guess companies that have a bit longer history and have the more legacy type of IT system has, right? So it's much worse for them that do have the pre-cloud era kind of background.
But let me sharpen what you said now. Isn't it as simple that if I have a 100-year-old company, I've been working with two companies now that is, one was more than 100 years old, Vattenfall. You're bound to have technical depth. And if you compare that to a company like Spotify, I mean, like we are talking century less.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So what happens if you just extrapolate on a century, right?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, you need to look at the history. You can't just cast a spell and everything is gone. More or less, it's impossible.
But how do you get out of 100 years? And because nothing is, as you said, a straight line, and nothing is easy to change. Yeah. And we are really now talking about, in banking and all the absolute core systems that don't touch,
Mainframes and COBOL.
Mainframes and COBOL, and that core is fairly large. And the real headache we've had, and I think we've known about it and knew about it for at least 20 years, we don't really know how to shift that core while in production.
But still, I think there is a psychological phenomena here that I don't feel or think people are aware of, and actually cause a lot of distress for companies, which is, let's ignore the newborn cloud era kind of companies that started,
the lucky recently. Ones.
Yeah, I mean, of course, they have less technical depth than the elderly one. That's obvious, I think, and clear.
They're no silverbacks.
No. But I would say also that there is this kind of problem that you see your own tech depth that you have, and then when you go and listen to conferences like Data Innovation Summits and Nordic Data Science and Machine Learning Summit and all these kind of conferences, and you hear other companies present their awesome solutions, it looks so shiny, it looks so great, and they have no technical depth, and then you get this kind of misunderstanding that it must be just us. It seems like no one else is having these kind of big hurdles. It must be just us that have all these kind of horrible, transformation to go through. But in reality, it's everyone.
Yeah, right? Maybe I have an idea. They should have like a psychology corner, where they can take care of all the people who needs to, talk about the problems.
Well noted.
We should have a data psychology.
This year we had like a
data therapist.
This year we had like
yeah, you're right.
We had real data decisions corner, which was basically a guy with a crystal ball predicting the future. It was the most visited corner of the entire event. So next year I'm doing that for sure.
Yeah, data
But isn't this the same as we have
data church and data confessions?
No, data confessions.
Henrika will buy you one of the priestess.
Data confessions. I was a priest. Did you hear? I was screaming like an evangelist. Someone was joking to me. Oh, this is one of those American. Anyway, that's funny. Back to your question, to be serious here, isn't this the same as social media angst? Like we all are showing up our beautiful lives.
That's a good analogy.
We're showing up our beautiful lives, and we're drinking Fanta Rosé every day.
Of course we are.
And we are buying, and of course we all have normal lives. And we are living with everything, right? And conferencing is the same, right? And that's what we've been discussing a lot, me and Goran. How do we create the other types of arenas where we can talk, data confessions, or we can have meetups in different ways? Because we really need the inspiration. We really need to feel that. Yeah. But we also need to talk about the pink elephants.
Yeah.
We also need to talk about why we fail.
Yeah. And that's very important.
I think it's super important, the typical conference is not geared to that.
I think it's
maybe we should change that.
Yeah, I think that's a very good topic. Why do things fail?
Yes, and let's have that in a minute or two.
You did a perfect setup.
Yeah,
you did a perfect segue.
Perfect transition.
But he's the boss.
No. Okay, I was thinking, we have to just finish it.
Yeah, finish.
I agree with
the
you.
move to Electrolux, and then we move directly.
Okay, so let's talk about Electrolux and then some big topics.
Yes.
Why do we fail?
Yes.
Yeah,
good.
So then we have finished that off. Okay, you made a move to Electrolux recently,
correct,
right?
Yeah.
Can you just elaborate a bit more? What made you take that move, and what is your current role at Electrolux?
Yeah, so the reason why I kind of found Electrolux, I know the company, of course, was the network. So there was a person in my network saying, "Hey, I think they might need you," and that's really the background why I started off there. My current role, as I said in the beginning, is the head of data platforms,
right.
global head of data platforms, and. What is then data platforms?
Yes.
Yeah, key question.
Exactly.
So in this case, we are running Microsoft Azure in the cloud. We have, I would say, at least the data platform organization is quite in a startup phase. I'm kind of humble about it. They've been this generation. We have two generations. Generation 1 based on Azure Data Lake Storage. Generation 1 and Generation 2. The Generation 2 with that architecture has been around for like something a little bit more than 12 months.
So fairly fresh.
Yeah, fairly fresh, We have something like 375 terabyte of data, 45 source systems, about 185 developers using the platform itself, and that's just counting the back-end part, I would say. I don't include anything about the front end in this, meaning like Power BI, Click, Tableau, whatever, and nothing about that.
So 185, would you call it back-end engineers or infra engineers?
I'm trying to generalize a little bit because it's not exact data engineers or so. So it's a number that we came up with quite recently through ServiceNow, I would say. So, yeah.
Okay, so just elaborate a bit more. So I guess you're making a big transformation as well in Electrolux, trying to get more data-driven in some ways, and then you're also moving into this data platform journey.
Yeah,
right.
Correct.
And you have a lot of data already, and you have a large number of developers. Are you taking? How are you setting up this journey? Are you doing it, on a full spread in a wide way, or are you targeting a few number of systems to start with, or how are you going about trying to move into this data platform era?
Yeah,
journey?
I would say there is a history here, and I have not been around that long time, what has happened, so to say.
Yeah.
There is a lot of things in transition as of right now, meaning that I think it was like this fall or this winter that they developed a data strategy. So that is going to be paving out the direction for what's going to happen with this area, I would say. There was also announced a new position for a CDO, Chief Data Officer, which I'm reporting to, Alison Bennett. And she's going to drive this area and with support of the CIO, the group CIO, so to say. And we haven't seen everything that's going to happen, so to say. We are launching, a colleague of mine, he's launching different domain areas, more connected to the organizational setup, meaning finance, consumer, operation, HR, etc. But then in parallel, we have a number of different initiatives and projects using the platform as well. So I would say probably each domain will have their own roadmap, more or less, on what they want to drive. But again, remember, this is a huge company, 50K people, something like that. And you have, given the history here, you have a strong decentralized organization in the different business areas, BAs, so to say. You have Europe and some other ones as well, North America, Latin America, Asia Pacific.
And in these business areas, you have, I guess, both manufacturing and marketing, sales.
Yes,
product.
exactly.
So it's not like there are sales business areas. There are full-on business areas where they have more or less the whole supply chain.
Yes, to my understanding.
The whole
yes,
value chain, I mean value
say,
chain.
Yeah. And you even have IT within those different, and I belong to the group, so to say. So,
and you used also to give us a snapshot to learn a little bit about Electrolux. How much is Electrolux? It's a huge company, right?
Yes, absolutely.
But also, and it has many different brands.
Yes.
And we have the brand Electrolux that we know about, but then we have other brands. I mean, there are mergers and acquisitions in this game.
Yeah.
Quite a few of them.
Yeah.
Over 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah, I think that was something that was I didn't know that they had this so strong acquisition journey.
Exactly.
As when I was during the introduction, they had some presentation. I think that was just fascinating. So
because they really grew in many ways.
What they've have done over the years, they have sold out so many different labels, more or less. I can't remember every of them, but it's quite many.
Are they on a journey to try to move to a more core business kind of operation, or?
That's my understanding, that they're trying to get down to the very roots, more or less.
Interesting. Okay, and just to get a bit more technical as well, for my pleasure, and perhaps some people that
listening to this.
Yes,
great.
Could you give some example about perhaps some project that you have been or starting to get involved with on data platforms that is like a typical, like a good example of this is the journey we want to make? If it involves some project from manufacturing or sales or finance or HR or whatever it is, do you have some highlights, some example that you could mention?
But the thing is that, I have only been there for like 9 weeks or so. And what I've done mostly during this period is that to bring more structure in way of working within the organization. Yes. Of course, I receive a lot of mails, from different projects, initiatives, and the different domains. But honestly, I not been involved very deeply in specific projects. There has been some conversations with projects in Latin America, for instance, where they are working with supply chain activities, and some of my employees has been helping out, so to say. But it's more to bring the structure in place, put the structure in place, and organization, and make it clearer how to interact with different parts of the organization. So what we've done is that I had one consultant and one employee to develop a pre-technical assessment to understand, okay, what has happened with the actual platform since launch. And that has given at least me and some other colleagues good insight on what we need to address. Right. If you put it like the next version will be a 3.0 or whatever you want to call it, so we need to address some things, but we also need to add a number of different enhancements to the actual platform.
And just to be concrete on the tech stack here, because you mentioned the data, I guess Azure data lake that you base it on, right? And you build layers on top of that, or how does it work?
I would, just to keep it quite simple, you have two parts of it. You have a data lake part, and you have a data warehouse, or I would call it more independent data marts using Synapse. And then
and that's an Azure service.
As the Azure service.
Yes, exactly. Correct. And then as I would say, there is a history with Click and some other tools, but most of what has been used against this Generation 2 platform is Power BI.
Right. Okay.
But there's so many angles to explore how you frame the boundaries of a data platform. So I just want to, and I just want to hear your opinions how we do this. And let me frame it from the context that I know a little bit more now, which is in Scania. So here we of course have a long journey where we have been on using one of the big cloud providers, several of them, by the way. But the interesting topic here is a little bit like, so we have sort of one part of the platform which is very much centered on the sensor data and the data around the truck, right? But here is very much AWS oriented, yada yada yada, maybe a little bit of Snowflake. Then we have other parts which has been the traditional sort of finance space, the enterprise data warehouse, which is actually still on-prem EDV, Oracle, blah, blah, blah. I understand what you mean with the dark. and what's the trajectory to bring that to cloud? And then we have what is called operational streaming analytics. So the whole platform around event-driven approaches.
Yeah.
And then we have sort of what we had was the on-prem data lake that is then moving into cloud approaches, maybe OLAP. So here we now have in Scania, if I put the broadest frame around what is Scania data platform 3.0, then we are sort of taking what's the environment where we build microservices, what's the environment where we have our API marketplace. What's the environment where we do the event streaming type data pipelines? What's the environment where we do more data at rest, OLAP, tabular, whatever? It's huge, right? And all of a sudden, it's like we're starting to understand. I'm really been pushing the discussion of platform of platforms. So really highlighting that, well, SAP is actually a platform in itself, how we deal with SAP. And here we have Dynamics, finance and CRM. And here we have now what we can do in the cloud, the big cloud providers, which is huge, right? Because I can now run SAP infra service on Amazon if I want to. So what constitutes technically the frame of the platform? We can have this conversation with a very pure BI perspective. We can have it, I bet you if I ask Spotify how they define platform is quite different, right?
Yes, yeah.
So I don't have an answer. I'm just reflecting.
Platform. I would kind of focus again on the business value. I think the platform should enable access to business value.
Yeah.
Period.
And then from here, you can derive, well, we're going to need integrations, we're going to need APIs, we're going to need data warehousing, we're going to need data pipelines, we're going to need event streams.
Exactly.
And then basically the platform grows based on that.
Yes.
Okay, I like that.
And let's soon move into failure discussions. But once again, sorry. But I just like to mention some of the words you were using before when describing the platform, which was, for one, the lakehouse architecture.
Yeah.
Secondly, that you had some kind of federator approach to it.
Yes.
Can you just briefly, and then moving to failure, speak a bit more? What do you mean with? I guess we spoke about the lakehouse already, but just briefly, what?
Yeah, I would say just to explain, this is something I could do for my dad or mother or something like that. So the data lakehouse approach is kind of using delta tables, and that's really awesome when it comes to advanced analytics.
And then Spark on top of that, or what's?
No, and wait. So. What does that really mean? What's the advantage with delta tables? And I guess if you have an Apple, you might have Time Machine, the backup system. Do you know how it works? Yeah. It means that you can browse back and forward. You can rewind and you can go forward in time to find the right backup of things. Okay, and this is very important when it comes to advanced analytics. Because then you can understand why things change when you set up your model. Correct me?
Yeah.
So we are heavy users of Databricks when it comes to our platform. And what was the second question?
Okay, but let me try to summarize a bit. So you are using the Databricks public cloud as well, or are you using it on Azure, because they have an integration?
On Azure.
Yes, because they have an integration, right? So
Exactly.
Databricks has an Azure integration.
Yeah.
You're using that, and underneath they have the data tables, which is the Databricks invention that is bringing together both the data lake and data warehouse functionality into a single system. And it's nice.
I think it's great.
Yeah, I think it's the future as well. It's obvious.
Future-proof.
Then federated as well. Can you just elaborate a bit more? What do you mean with that?
Federated approach means really that, given the organizational structure at Electrolux, it's very important to give everybody the access to the platform itself. So you have a business area Europe, for instance. They are onboarding this data platform, and they start developing their stuff according to the frameworks and standards that has been set up. It's not complete in any way, but that's what I mean by federated. So it's like you enable the platform to be used for consumption of cloud resources for different developers, so to say.
Could we even argue for one topic that we use a lot here, which is hub and spoke, saying that you do have a centralized hub saying these are the general principles, these are the basic technologies, these are the services you use on Azure, etc., from a hub point of view, but then you have a large number of spokes in a federated way that are enabled to use that in their customized way or their preferred way.
Yeah, I fully understand what you're talking about. The only way I've spoken about hub and spoke is when you have a data warehouse and the spokes are more the different data marts, more or less. Yeah. But in a way, you can apply the same way of thinking in this case as well. So you would say the hub in this case would be the data lake where you can ingest everything. Right. And then you have the possibility to spoke this out to the different whatever it is, like data marts or data warehouses.
I have one analogy. Let me test it on you if you think it's correct. Sometimes when I try to explain federation, I think in the similar vein as you are doing. I haven't used hub and spoke because that has been confusing, and ultimately the spoke has been a little bit like I pre-populate the cube even into a data set in Power BI, and then the spoke can use that, but they can't really use the resources beneath me. And you're talking about something different. What I have used is the analogy of the hotel. Mm-hmm. So basically,
interesting.
Yeah. So the analogy. So we're building a big hotel right now, and someone is putting up the infrastructure, how the whole hotel is working. And then one part, some domains, or some has responsibility for what happens in the hotel reception, in the hotel lobby. Here we have data and we have models that is sort of can be used for all. Then we have other parts of the organization that we need to help them get the hotel room. And within that hotel room, it's easy for them to sort of get access and sort of bring the newspaper from the lobby up to the hotel room. But on the other hand, I don't necessarily want the dirty underwear in the hotel room to end up in the lobby. So I've been trying to make this rhetoric where basically, you know what, do you want a lot of small cottages everywhere and you want to you really want to build it yourself? Well, you know, or could we build a hotel and help you decorate the hotel room, and then you can have some stuff in this way. Yeah. You see what I mean? Like, so federation in a way that sort of, how do we explain that we want people to move into the platform, but we recognize that they need to have some autonomy somewhere without, you know, crashing, without dirty underwear in the lobby. Yeah. What do you think about that analogy?
No, I something else came up in my mind. Do you want to hear it?
Yes, I want to hear it.
So I had a friend of mine, and he was on a business trip abroad, and he was, of course, he was sleeping at the hotel, and for some reason, you know, he was sleeping nude. So in this bed, and you know, in the middle of the night, he woke up and he was like a little bit confused because he didn't know doors and the layout of this room, of course. And he was super tired, and he went up there and he will just open that door, and you know, he wanted to take that leak very bad, I guess.
But he would.
But he opened the door and closed the door to the actual room. So he was standing there, completely undressed, trying to get the attention in the right way.
This is like a true movie.
Yeah, I know, but it's very true.
So
yeah, sorry for crashing your analogy.
Oh yeah. But I mean, like, how to explain federation, right?
Yeah, so that is what you get if you don't get federated. You get the naked guy coming.
Yeah. Exactly. And you know, federation means we need to have common. We need to have practices and common sense how we use the hotel, right? Otherwise, you get a naked guy in the lobby.
I kind of see that kind of heading coming up, you know. If you don't get federated, you get nude.
While you were talking, I was like, this is a good way. This is a good CTA. I think we can use this. My marketing brain is just like...
Yeah, another T-shirt. Naked experience or federate experience. What do you prefer?
Federate or get naked.
Yes. Love it.
That's funny.
Okay, we've been procrastinating, I think, that one topic very long now, and let's try to move into it. And I'm not really sure how to open that topic properly.
You had your chance.
I know, you had a great opening for it. But I get it's related to failure in some way.
Yeah.
And I let you get more into it, but you have so much experience from different companies, and I think if we can speak about failures in a good way, I think it's one of the most educational learnings you can make. So if we can speak about that in a good sense, it's very good. So with that, I just give it to you, Jens.
Catching it just like that.
Failure. I didn't know how to phrase it or frame it.
But I think you had a framing yourself in your head.
No, not really. But I think it's a very important topic to discuss because no one really talk about it.
Yes.
And at least I've come across a few CIOs throughout the years, who have really big headache when it comes to this area. And I remember one, he said to me, I've been working something like a month there. And he said, I had some kind of introduction talk with him. And he said, Jens, I really hate business intelligence. And, I felt like, okay, that sounds very good. This might be a little bit of an uphill climb eventually. No, but we kind of, took care of that. It took 4.5 years or so. But I guess he's quite happy nowadays. But I think to discuss and talk about failures is very important. Like everything else in life, because you learn a lot from it.
If you don't make any mistakes, I would argue, you will have a really hard time to learn anything. Will you agree?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when you go to different events and everything, you hear the success stories and how everything, how they succeed, and you very seldom hear about the failures, and the learnings, and what you can take away from that. But what I think is maybe not a very good analogy, but it's like building a house or building a bridge.
I thought you were going to say it's like building a hotel.
Okay. No, not the hotel again. But I think it's like if you.
I have a perfect intro for.
You have?
Yes.
Let's hear it.
Right. I have a perfect intro for that, and it's related to what you said before. Before we started the show, and that was related to courage.
Yeah.
Because courage actually leads to success or a failure, right? Because these are the if scenarios.
Exactly.
So I think that first, let's define what is courage when transforming and moving let's say a company to a data-driven transformation or data-driven concept. What does it mean, courage? And courage is also, acceptance that you will fail. If you're talking about people speaking on stage about their successful stories, but not about their failures, that is also a courage.
Yes, it is.
Right? I would be a little bit the opposite of courage, because the courage will be, hey, guys, it's not everything pitchy. This is what is happening. But let's define courage. And then from that, let's define the failure. I think this is the best way.
I agree.
Right. So what did you mean when you said, let's talk about courage in transformation?
I think in many cases, you need to be bold enough to take those important steps that someone else hasn't done before. And I want to take this example again with this data event that we executed or performed at the insurance company. No one had done it before. None. And I sat down with the team and we discussed, how do we set the scene really, within the insurance company. And this insurance company is quite old, a lot of legacy systems.
100 years at least, right?
Yeah, 150 or something like that. And we sat down and we had this creative workshop to discuss, okay, what do we do? And everybody was so excited. It was so super fun to do this. And I think it took a lot of courage, for everybody in that room to really step up and do this, So it's really about making those bold decisions and trying to do stuff that someone else hasn't tried out, I would say. Right. That's my in way of explaining it, I guess.
You wanna?
Yeah, because I have... So there is one thing that I have been keeping on my soul for a long time, and it's one of the things that... So I went to this data hike that Aero organized during the weekend, and it was fantastic. It was 10 of us. It was beautiful. It was a range of people working from enterprises and startup companies and etc. Some data scientists, some heads of AI. And I would like to come back to something that you mentioned also earlier, and that was the politics.
Yeah.
And I want to address this because usually, basically, we avoid this topic, but everybody talks about the politics in enterprises. But the politics in enterprises is also a hinder when it comes to innovation, because if you want to have a courage, that means that you need to be courageous enough to go against the current, which is the organizational structure and the organizational people, organizational people saying like, okay, if I do this, I might get bad report.
Yeah, you're right.
So I think that there is a lot to be discussed only on this topic, because there is a huge amount of people in the middle management that are furious that they are willing to make the change, but somebody above, because he's playing the politics, is not allowing them to actually be courageous. There is no change if there is no courageous times. That's why Corona and pandemic was so beautiful, because against all of the negative connotation to death and whatever it was, you can see that in 6 months organization can work really nice when they align themselves behind not the politics, but being courageous to find the solutions.
Yeah. And I have a really good transition point to that.
Great.
Leadership.
Okay,
So I think now, now it's getting very interested, because I think what's really key when it comes to, courage, failures and everything, it's leadership. And to me, personally, leadership is everything.
Yeah.
It really sets everything in place.
But let me now string it together.
Sure.
I think we have three key words. Talk about failures, courage, leadership. So let me frame it like that. It's not until we talk about and examine the failures that we truly understand what we need to work on that really matters.
Exactly.
And when we really go on the journey of failures and understand what really matters, it helps us to go from fixing symptoms to root problems.
Root causes.
And then when we are going to root causes in a large enterprise, I argue that you can string it a lot back to the fundamental leadership, incentives, mandates, and our objectives.
Yes.
And here now, stringing it back to the dilemma we talked about yesterday, before. I have this very clear in my head now, because this was what I was exploring in the last little booklet I wrote, the enterprise dare dilemma. So this dilemma that we are talking about, that it truly exists, it's in many different dimensions. It's this sort of maximizing the cash flow of what we have today until that we know it's going to be obsolete for future cash flows, maximizing the value now to what is future values, maximizing instant rewards to scalability, maximizing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And all this then boils down to, fundamentally, when we have gone the whole journey, why we need leadership in the end is that someone needs to wake up to, okay, there might be a fundamental different incentive game here. There might be we need to cut the organization in a different way. We need to refocus from economies of scale to economies of learning, or there's a fundamental shift.
Absolutely.
From efficiency focus to innovation focus. Many different things like this, and then basically the failures allows us to find the root causes. The courage makes us talk about it and nail it down, and then the leadership is needed, makes it happen. Because if it doesn't happen, if the leadership is not willing to change the mandates and organization incentives, in the end, we are working against the context.
I think you wrapped it up excellently. I think it was really good.
And this is we're struggling here, right? Because it's a little bit like, and actually, we are our own worst enemies. And you know why?
No.
Because the whole industry and the whole way we are learning about these things, we are learning about them from the tech stack. We are learning what Databricks can do with data tables, delta tables. We are learning about this. So we are really proficient in the engineering and all this as a community. I'm generalizing.
Yeah.
And we are so deep in our community, and we're quite, fairly good at what we are doing, but we have lost the touch with the core dilemma and the agenda of leadership. So there's some sort of gap, literacy gap, and I think one of the key failures I am doing, how do I become better at playing with empathy the game of the executive board or the game of the business leaders? So basically, I can't really expect them to come to play my game. I wish they were interested in delta tables, but they're not. So how do I need to communicate? I don't know. This gap,
No,
I think is huge.
I think what you're touching here is very important, and you need to adapt your communication depending on your audience, so to say. And when it comes to the C-level suite or whatever, it's about explaining how you can enable value. And that's what I want. I think sometimes we get lost in translation, more or less, when it comes to all the technology.
That's what I meant.
Exactly, I understand. So it's really that, we are leaning a little bit too much on the technology itself and get completely lost, instead of just, seeing the technology as the actual enabler of the business value, and talk about the business value instead, and I think that has been a problem with this industry for quite some time, more or less. And that kind of goes back to some of my comments on my LinkedIn profile, because I was born and raised in a family who drove their own business. My parents had their own business, electronics store. Guess what I did during my summer vacations in school? I was working there. Yeah,
selling or repairing television sets.
No, I was more the sales kind of guy and delivery kind of guy. But I think that was really part of my core when I grew up. It's super important to understand the value of business and interacting with customers. And of course, when it comes to working in the retail industry or manufacturing, like I do right now, that's a very good understanding, because how the customer is working. But it really puts the focus on the actual, delivering value and understanding that's super important. And I've been trying to have that as a red thread in everything I do within data and analytics.
But there's so many topics there. But isn't this extremely hard? Because we're expecting people to have mastery in very complex technology that is extremely rapidly evolving. So you are just simply consumed to keep up. It consumes you to keep up what you could do. I'm a data engineer, and that is my core calling. I'm a data engineer. So can you really expect a data engineer to also be the best businessman?
No. And it's about specialization as well. I think you need to be very humble. I'm very humble about all the core competences needed to deliver something today. Yeah. I mean, in the back in the days when this kicked off, with data warehousing and BI for me is both like data warehousing plus decision support, more or less. You were talking about front end developers and back end developers. That was kind of simple, Someone did the back end stuff and someone was doing the fun stuff, with the graphical user interface towards the customer. So much more complex. But now it's so much more complex.
Exactly.
It's like a set of different specializations, and that's something that I very often see in different organizations, because they think, okay, so you're a developer. Okay, are you doing C# or C++, or what do you do? But in this case, it's so much more, and it's not like only compiling a set of code and running the application. It's so much more around that.
But speaking about that, and trying to also summarize the topic a bit here, I think we had a nice catchphrase here, which is that we need to recognize the failures. We need to have the courage to talk about them.
Yeah.
And the leadership, I guess, to solve them in some way.
Perfect.
And very good.
But also, how do we solve them? And what is the right leadership? And what is the wrong leadership? And let me give an example potentially of wrong leadership and see if you agree or disagree. No, but I think, one way to just reason about things is always to think about the extremes. And then you try to find, okay, the right path is probably somewhere in between. And one extreme when it comes to leadership and, being able to solve the failures that we have is to say, we just listen to the users, to find the proper business value, perhaps of a product that we're developing at Electrolux, or we try to talk to the domain experts of how to do the finances or the supply chain or the manufacturing or whatever. But you listen to the domain experts or the users and find, that side of the story, and they can say, I think this micro oven is horrible because I have to press this button twice and I just want to press it once. I don't know. I'm just doing some extreme example here. So that's just listening to one side of the story. They are experts in how things are being used. Today. Then you have the other extreme, which is the tech expert. The tech expert know exactly how the data lakes or data tables works, or Databricks works, how Azure's Synapse works. They know how AI works. They know how to build the data pipelines, but they don't really know the business value. They don't really know the domain needs, so to speak, of whatever product or service you're building. So in either case, you are just listening to the users themselves and say, what do you need? And we fix that. In the other sense, you're just listening to the tech expert and say, what do you think we should do? And you have a tech-driven approach to what you want to build. I would argue that both of those extremes are wrong.
I agree as well. I think it's quite simple.
Yes.
Just put them both in a blender.
In an Electrolux blender, of course.
Yes, of course. Electrolux, go Electrolux. No, of course, using an Electrolux blender to blend that up. I mean, I think it is super important to use with the cross-functional teams.
Yes.
I think it's all about bringing the business together with the tech people. So I'm trying to wrap it up to the leadership encourage kind of thing as well. But I would say what I've seen, I'm trying to go back a little bit, in regards of failures. I think it's about, if you really know how to do something, it's about competence, and you have done it a number of times, and you know what really fails and what really works. The analogy would be eventually when you build a bridge, it's somewhat complex. You need to understand the architecture, the blueprint. You need to do a lot of calculations and stuff like that to understand how much pressure it's going to be, and the workload and stuff. But if you've done that a number of times, you know really how to build a bridge. And I think competence is really key, and you can't really underestimate that. And that's a risk mitigation. Because if you have built up that, because everybody who has been working for a long time, they have done the mistakes. They have earned their share, more or less, when it comes to understanding what works or not. But also, that is not sufficient. You really need to have someone that can lead and understand that and execute that in the right direction and communicate that. So now I think nowadays it's more about, when you are a leader, it's more or less required, that you have a somewhat understanding about the actual domain that you're driving. That's my my point.
I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to try to latch on to what Anders said, because and what you said with the cross-functional team, and because I think this is part of why we fail, and part of what change in leadership we need. So we are coming from a paradigm where we have sort of driven, we are business functions over here and we are IT over here. And that has kind of served us well when we had business applications that we bought off the shelf.
Yes.
And this is a huge difference, I would argue, if I take a Spotify, which is actually a software engineering company at heart, versus an enterprise, which is a business application-oriented technology stack. And here we now have a situation that it won't fly with data and AI. Actually, the future of data platform drives more closer to software engineering than business application thinking. So here now we have the change that we need those to work together. They need to have a common lingo. They need, and I have failed several times with this. And the classic is that you're trying to, we should work as a team. But even if you draw the perfect process, it looks like they're working as a team on paper. But then you scratch the surface. How did we come out to a result? Oh, the business guys were sitting in one room, in one workshop, and then they flipped it to the technicians later down the track who looked at what they could do.
Yeah.
And in reality, that's not what I wanted, because people misunderstand it and say, we need to do a business framing of the problem. So we let the business do that. And then in the same process, we let the technicians solve it. No. I wanted the technology perspective and the business perspective on the business framing.
Exactly.
And then when we come to solution, I wanted the business framing and the technology framing on the solution. And here all of a sudden, if you don't really go down granular on the cross-functional team mechanics, you miss this, right? I've drawn up a beautiful process. I did this and fucked it up. And I thought we were working well. The process was clear. We had a cross-functional team, but the mechanics of who was taking what meetings was still sequential.
Yeah.
And so I think now we come to the leadership problem. That one of the changes in leadership now that we now need to step up to is we need to be ready to lead cross-functional teams. And it is quite different to lead as having the mastery and experience in one discipline and lead a discipline team, to now I'm going to be humble enough to lead a cross-disciplinary team where I might be T-shaped and have maybe some mastery, but I'm way out of my depth on other dimensions.
You're right.
I think this is a different leadership.
It is.
This is one topic, right?
It's very good.
And then I think another part of this leadership problem is that we don't always have these natural arenas where these cross-functional teams can work. So we need to create the product team. We need to create the organization or the project. So we need to do something where we can make this safe cross-functional work happen.
Exactly.
And if the leaders don't have that, they don't understand that this is the real problem. We're not working on the real problem in my way. So I think that simple argument you're doing is quite profound, Anders, because I think it starts here. Because if you start solving that team will be starting to put the right requirements on the platform, and it will flow from here just in time. But I think this is one of the biggest problems, that we are not really solving that.
Right.
I don't know. Am I too much?
No.
I think
completely agree. And I'm so tempted to go more into what is really good leadership.
Yeah.
Let's go there.
And bad leadership. Should we do that?
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah,
It's a
I think so
topic.
too. I think it's a
It's a good
Go
topic.
ahead, Anders.
Yeah, because I was thinking, we need to go more philosophical and long term here. But what else? Let's be improvised here and just continue this discussion and move then into. Let me see if I can find a framing here. And I would argue, for one, there is a difference between being a boss and being a good leader.
Yes, absolutely.
And you can be an informal leader that is really helping a whole team or a large piece of or part of an organization to really move forward in a good way. You're being like a mentor, or you have a leadership skill that is really helping not only yourself, but so many others. And then you have the whole dimension between being micromanaging people and saying, I know I'm the expert, you should do this, versus trying to have more of a coaching attitude and trying to bring out the solution from people. And I think also in this case, both extremes are potentially bad. But so having these type of thinkings, for one, is it necessarily the boss from a line management point of view that should be the leader? Should you promote other people to be a leader? How can you be a good leader so that you are not micromanaging people and still making the whole team provide the values? That's a very fluffy kind of framing, but do you have any thoughts about this?
Of course I do.
How do you promote good leadership in Electrolux or
in general, I would say.
I
would say, first of all, I would make a clear distinction between being a manager and a leader.
Yes.
Maybe manager is more what you're referring to as being a boss.
Yes, that's why.
The boss is more the person who is micromanaging everybody to atomic level, more or less.
Yes.
And I think that is very counterproductive. I think it kills everything when it comes to innovation. I think it's I don't know. I can't really relate to that leadership style. So I'm more in the other end, more or less. It's really about empowering the different co-workers to let go of their capacity. And I think my own leadership style is all about to eliminate hinders, or how do you say it, like obstacles or something like that. To be a service organization, to chop down the trees in the way, more or less, to make them do their stuff, more or less.
Let me challenge it.
Okay.
I agree in all you said, but let me challenge this just because it's fun, or just to bring in another angle. And I'm not going to challenge it directly. But when we are leading, we're not micromanaging. But what can we expect from a leader in terms of vision and shaping?
I think that's really, really important. And now I'm coming back to the strategy and making it clear, setting the goals for everybody. Depending on the organization, the setup, of course. But if I can choose myself, I would, use that strategy as the guiding star, to create an understanding for everybody where we're going, And as discussed before, the line is not straight. Exactly. It might be a crooked road line. But I think it's very important to at least give a storytelling about the vision, so everybody can understand, okay, we want to reach that, whatever it is. And it should be contaminating everybody who's part of that organization, and saying that, I'm part of this, I really understand this is the way we go. And what I do every day is a little bit chunk of that's going to contribute to doing that.
Yeah, but so what you're saying now, I think this is really important, because as a leader, you have an obligation, or it comes with the territory, if you want to really call yourself a leader, that you have vision and shaping power. Now, how you do it, if you're the sole visionary and you can articulate it yourself, or if you know how to facilitate a group to come up with a vision, doesn't matter. As long as the group around the leader, you find a vision and clarity, and that contaminates, this is great. But we have different styles, which I think can be good leadership. But some people, like if I take a Steve Jobs of the world, he or Elon Musk for that matter, he might be the person who projects the shape or the vision.
Yeah.
But you have other leaders, maybe Warren Buffett, or I don't know, who has a different tonality.
Yeah.
He will achieve the vision equally.
Yeah, of course.
But his mechanics to get there
is different.
Yeah, equally successful, even more successful. So I think you can be a leader as long as you understand that with leadership comes vision.
Yes.
And you need to provide that, and you need to put that on paper. How you get there, depending on your personality and your competencies.
Exactly. Yeah.
Many gameplays.
Yeah.
Would you? Is that fair?
No, I agree. I guess you need to put your personality touch to it. I think that's very important. Again, I think there's not one single solution for it.
No.
So you need to choose the path that's right for you, I guess.
But leadership is important, right? Because if no one is taking, if no one is shaping, if no one is putting the direction down, it's really and saying we need to go right now. We've gone left before, but this time we need to go left, and this is the vision why.
Yeah.
Someone needs to do that.
Absolutely.
Right? Yes.
Is that leadership? Is it part of leadership or not?
No. I'm just trying to recognize if we are saying a lot of platitudes here or not. And of course, we
are.
Yes. And that's my platitude alert is ringing a bit in my head. But of course, I agree. Yes. So then if we're trying to
can you take it out of the platitude? Because I think we're saying the right stuff now.
Yes,
but can we take it out of the platitude alert? Because I think you're right on that too. Could you help us summarize it, that it takes it?
I don't think so, but I can try. No, but I think one of the best leaders is someone that actually can bring the best out of people.
Exactly.
That is one of the best strengths I would say a leader have. But they also need to be able to form a vision, as you say, that they need to do that and phrase that in a way that empowers people, that gives people the will to persevere all the failures that they're going to see when trying to do so, and steering this crooked road ahead to some kind of vision that you are seeing. And I'm trying to say what you said, or think about what you said about Steve Jobs and Elon Musk, etc. Are they good leaders or not? Obviously, they're very successful. And that's why it's not obviously so easy sometimes.
They're humans also. They're leaders that have been successful, but they're also humans with human flaws. And very big flaws, by the way.
I would say even like this. What I'm saying sometimes is it's easy to say we should be coaching leaders. We should not be micromanaging things. We should only be, bring out the best of people. It sounds awesome, and I truly believe that's the right thing to do. But looking at some of the top leaders in the world, that's not really necessarily how they have done it, right? I think there are some examples like Larry Page and Sergey Brin, etc., and Google, etc. But they also had very, very strong knowledge, domain expertise, tech expertise, and I think all of them had tech expertise, which potentially was very important, right? That's my kind of dilemma here. I see, for one, you want to be the good coaching leader, but then at the same time you may need to have.
But you know what I would argue is the common denominator between Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, Larry, and so forth. They at some point in their careers, in their companies, they've had super strong visions of how things should be, and to some degree they actually represent where you also almost get a personal cult happening.
Yeah.
And we have other leaders who's not leading as a cult, as around their persona, so to speak. But and maybe you don't need that, but you need something. You need a very strong vision that you, because if it's not strong enough and clear enough, you can't dissect it.
No,
it just falls apart, right? And somehow leadership needs to provide that. And it seems now that it has, like Jeff Bezos, come on, right?
Yes,
he's an asshole, right?
Yeah.
But he has a vision and laser focus on that vision, right?
I think there are, more, I shouldn't say good examples because it is the wrong adjective to wear, but I think people like Larry Page and Sergey Brin, the Google founders, and
Larry Ellison.
Sorry, what?
Larry.
Ellison was the Oracle.
Oracle,
I'm not
right?
sure if he's in the same league there, but
okay,
I think
you're
Satya Nadella, I think, actually.
Satya is maybe the most humane leader of them all.
Yeah, and very different from his previous CEOs of Microsoft.
Satya, he's the hero. He's maybe the real hero.
For me, I think he's a really good role model of that. Can we think about, what is the best role model of a leader that we can think of today? I think Satya is one of the top.
I would agree. I would agree.
Because the other ones, they have a leadership around a personal cult.
Yeah.
Very strongly, right? Let's go to some historical persons. Was Churchill a good leader?
Oof.
What do we know about history? I think it was very strong, right? Almost like a personal cult more than anything. I really don't know.
He made a lot of wine-liners, and he also liked vodka a lot, but I'm not sure if that's...
It's actually champagne.
Was it champagne? Oh, sorry.
No, but maybe that's a bad... because that's something so completely different.
And you cannot judge... we cannot put him in the same bucket because he was a leader during what is called...
Exactly.
During wartime. As soon as the war was over, he was gone.
Yeah.
So because he had like a strong foot and he was very... political, but that doesn't. I think that it's very hard to actually to there is a both place for a manager and both place, or a boss and both place for a leader. And I believe we discussed this earlier. So for example, some function, they need a manager. So a leader can be a leader of managers.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Because if you look at the chain of command in army, you have the general. His job is to basically make decision on a macro level based on the information that he gets on the field. Now on the field, you will have the managers who will actually make sure that the information is gathered.
Yeah.
Those are the guys that will basically say to these people, you need to go now through this bridge and you to conquer. But there is 5 Panzer division of, I don't know, Nazis or whatever it's going to be. So he needs to send them basically to that in order for them to get that intel. But the general doesn't see that. He only needs the information by tomorrow because he wants to make a bigger changes. So I think it's unfair to say that basically there should be one type of a leader, because depending on where you are.
Yeah.
I think it's fair.
And the way, what kind of situation and where the organization are eventually as well. But I think what we're trying to aim at here is really, old way of managing, and you can also add another dimension, and that's the culture, a dimension to it as well.
Yeah, so interesting topic. I wish we had a super simple answer to everything here, but it's certainly not.
No.
Yeah. And I guess once again, it's through experience, I think, that you learn. And I think experience is sometimes a bit undervalued. And I think the quote what you said before, through experience, you learn to recognize the failures you have done. Hopefully, you also learn how to have the courage to speak about them and to properly recognize them. And then hopefully you gain the leadership to be able to solve them together with other people. Not solve them yourself potentially, but through other people, being able to solve the challenges and failures that you do recognize through having courage.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Good wrap up.
I think that is the sort of three-liner t-shirt.
Three-liner t-shirt.
Yeah.
Should we end with perhaps like a final, more long-term philosophical kind of topic?
At least one.
At least one.
At least one.
We can take a couple after.
Sure.
And I'll let you choose, Jens. And I'll speak. I'll name a couple of them, and then you can choose which one you think is most interesting for you to just elaborate a bit more on. The first one is too boring. I skip that. Okay, so one topic we have spoken a bit about a lot here is the so-called AI divide, and then we can see that the big tech giants, they're driving away in extreme scale, and they are expanding in more or less an exponential rate. And you have the big companies in US and China that are now the most valuable companies in the world throughout any sector. And I think, Electrolux being not a tech company from start perhaps, but they of course are making a big transformation now to becoming increasingly tech organization, right? Or
to some extent, at least what I know so far.
Are you then, the question, if we move into this question, would be, what do you think about the big tech giants in general? Are they a danger to the society at large, or Electrolux specifically? That could be one topic to explore.
Yeah.
And another topic then could be what we spoke about, the singularity, saying, if we actually are seeing an increased development, exponential development in being able to have intelligence through using data, like we're seeing with the large language models, etc., that are being able to even explain jokes. If someone want to Google for this afterwards, they can look up chinchilla or flamingo and these kind of awesome models that have come recently that even can understand and explain the reasons behind a joke. That I think is one of the most difficult things that requires a huge amount of intelligence and knowledge. And this is just amazing. Are you then, Jens, afraid about a point in time where someone does a mistake, someone unleash AI, perhaps in warfare, perhaps on the stock market, perhaps in manufacturing, perhaps in some kind of product, a micro oven that goes bananas and just says, no, you're not going to eat this hamburger now. Yeah. Anyway, you lose control in some way.
I understand.
That could be one topic. And perhaps the final one is more, are you an optimist in that we are able to control this, or if we as humans are sufficiently in control that you think that in 10, 15 years, the world will be a much better place where we have learned to live in harmony with data and AI, so that we simply have a much higher welfare and beautiful society. That could be the last one.
Take optimist or not.
Yeah.
I think there's very interesting topics. May I pick two?
Okay. Sure.
Okay.
No, but I probably keep it shorter. First of all, I would like to start with singularity.
Yes.
You know, the first thing that kind of crosses my mind, you know, when you gave your wrap up, it's war games.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah.
Also movie.
So I think, you know, I can't remember the year, but it maybe 1980s.
So 80s.
Yeah, something
80s
like that.
Probably 80s.
But I think there was a guy there, he had named Falcon, and, you know, there was the NORD system and everything. But I think this singularity thing has been around for many years.
Yeah,
I would say,
even,
I would say so. Even, you know, from the time when the computers.
83 apparently.
Yeah, or 83.
83.
Yeah. In fact, so it's been around ever since the computer saw its dawn, I would say. Yes. Even closer to science fictions eventually. So if it would happen, singularity could be. I mean, just as you say, you know, the development within different models is super fast. But to some extent, I feel that someone needs to push the bottom.
Mm.
But it's
and we can pull the plug, you think?
Yeah. More or less, I would say. Yeah. You know, you need electricity to some extent. So I think that's a very interesting topic. In regards of AI divide, I think it's already happening.
Yes.
I think it's to some extent a little bit scary when you see the big firms, you know, how they kind of consume AI tech talent and how this gap is getting bigger, I would say.
It is, right? It is accelerating, right?
Yeah.
But is it a concern? Is it a problem? That's
maybe to some extent, I think it's a problem, because there are going to be companies or organizations that's going to be, they are too late, you know. I kind of think about what's happening in you know, Darwin's, you know, fittest of the survival. You know, it's like some people, so some organizations, some companies, they will just fade away more or less, because they have been too slow to adapt, more or less. Mm-hmm. Let's take an old example that I talk about when it comes to digitalization. You know, Kodak. Mm-hmm. You know, yes. A long time ago, when you have those analogic photo film rolls. You know, in fact, they invented the digital camera.
They did, right? In 1985 or something.
They did. And it's so fascinating, because some, you know, we don't go that way, because we make so much money on this analog stuff, you know. Can you imagine? And then a number of years later, they go bankruptcy.
And like 1 or 2 years, they just went from a super big company to nothing.
And I think that's so fascinating. There are some other examples as well. It's like Blockbusters in the US, the super big chain, a lot of great movies that you can rent. Mm-hmm. And now, you know, when Netflix, eventually I think it was Netflix, when they entered the scene, you know, overnight, more or less, everything just faded away. Mm.
But I think this AI divide, why it's a concern, what's the problem with it? I can flip it. The benefit of if we start in that area is that really what they are doing and how they are driving tech innovation and research is actually fuel a whole ecosystem of startups or new business models coming up as an opportunity based on what you now can do in cloud and all that. So it has it's creating its own macros. So that's the one benefit. But what I think is the two major problems. I mean, history teaches us that when you have an uneven distribution of power in terms of know-how, in terms of money, on a very, very few small percentage. So the problem is not that you have giants, right? The problem is that you have so few that is so far ahead of so many. And this leads to war. It leads to revolution. So this, and you can trace it back to the conflicts around oil. You can trace it back to all the way back in history. So when someone has all the power in one area, and that is on very, very few, it leads to dysfunctional, scary situations. This is one. The other spectrum of this is, if we understand that the innovation pressure is going up, and we all as society, companies, but also individuals, need to cope and adapt. I argue it must be much better for our society, for Sweden, if we are doing that on our own terms. It's painful, but we are doing it on our own terms. I am deciding when I want to learn something new. I am deciding when I get a new job, instead of being completely disrupted from the outside of the core environment. So if I think about industries, healthy Swedish industries, it's better that they disrupt themselves this has to do with jobs. It has to do with everything like that. So when we have a very, very few set of companies disrupting the rest, I think the economical consequences are bigger.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to make some scary, bold moves within an industry, and you will die because you made the wrong move. But I think it's still more healthy for Sweden or for society.
You're right. I think the only challenge here is that what's like the human capital in this, the people who have the skill set.
Yeah.
And I think that's very key in this, because you won't be able to disrupt your own business if you don't have the right people.
Exactly.
And so I think that's really the key enabler in this, and that's kind of part of the problem when it comes to the AI divide, because you have a few companies that attracts a lot of people, and they are like sucked up in this ecosystem, either if it's Amazon or Google or whatever it is.
Or if they're recruited or simply acquisition.
Yes, exactly. And I think so the natural source of people, that's going to be quite limited. And then I agree with you. I think it's much better if each company is just disrupting themselves. But what about, access to the people who can actually perform that?
Yeah, so it's a catch-22.
Yeah.
And there is one more topic that we need to put in talent, because I think that we need to round about the talent. If it's an AI war, if it's an AI divide we're talking about, it's a war for talent. We went to Middle East, we talked about it, we're talking about Data Innovation Summit. But we are not often talking about and Eric Peterson was here last week, I believe.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, yes. 2 weeks ago, right. We were talking about this, and after work, we started talking about something, and it came into my mind. It's so big inflation right now on the salaries that every single data scientist who is actually working in a company is usually staying for a very short amount of time, which means that they are staying for not enough time for them to make meaningful impacts for the company. That means that it's basically we're creating also a society, or we're creating basically a functions that they will never know how it's going to look like if you put something in production. how it's going to look like when something is actually 10 years behind, right? Because everybody is learning only the first part. Let's do a POC, let's put it in a practice and see how it's going to work. And then you switch to the next one in 6 months. So I think this is also something that we need. And if in a bigger companies, because they have a bigger benefits, they will also stay there for a long time because the benefits are better for them.
Yeah.
Here, they're just basically jumping 6 months here, 6 months there. It's very rarely there are data scientists staying more than 2-3 years in a company. It's actually less than 1 year because headhunters are all the time and giving better offers. And I think this is something that also needs to be understood and discussed in a larger scope, because otherwise we have like a competence that is not in a long term being so successful in deploying things in production. And that is actually right now, MLOps people are the most important people this year. It was the data engineers last year. MLOps is the name of the title this year. And MLOps is people that have put something in production. How many of those do we have?
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. Absolutely.
But Anders, yours.
For me, it's a very difficult problem. I think also, Henrik, you phrased it well when saying that it's not necessarily bad that tech giants are very successful. They are providing awesome services to the world. They are bringing jobs to the world. They are actually doing research in an extremely advanced way that is accelerating technology in a way that would not be anywhere near possible without them. They are doing a lot of good. So, and that can help the whole economy of certain parts of our world in a great way. Then the other more philosophical potential dilemma or problem with that is that when you have a concentration of power in this way, and perhaps, one person in particular now with Elon Musk, that is, he's extremely successful. He has been able to bring so many companies, and Tesla not the least, to an extreme valuation. And he is by far the most richest person in the world these days. And now he's also potentially going to own a big social network as well.
Yeah, Twitter.
Yeah. And what does that mean? Even if he has the best intentions, he is a potentially benevolent dictator. I don't want to say the words in my mouth, but he potentially may be very benevolent, wanting the best of people in the world, and reducing our climate footprint and carbon footprint that we have, and making us multiplanetary and so forth. But it is a dangerous thing when the concentration of power goes to extreme, and it's going really fast. Yeah. This is actually concerning to me. And even if it's just being super successful, you can't really blame him or Tesla for that.
No, but what I'm really pissed off about is not the tech giants. I'm pissed off with society at large sleepwalking.
Yeah.
I'm not really blaming them for doing something awesome. I'm blaming regulators, politicians, and large companies being fat and happy, and not understanding how far away. They don't understand how far away they are.
Yeah.
In these areas.
I don't think you understand the power of data and AI, to be frank. I mean, being able to use technology to scale up things in a way that is extreme. And just what he's doing, as I said before, full self-driving and having self-driving cars, yeah, that's fun. I don't think that's the big thing that Elon Musk is doing with Tesla. I think what the level of automation that he's bringing to the factories that he's doing is going to put him in an extremely powerful position in a very long time ahead, because no one can compete in terms of the price of these cars going forward.
No, you're right. I think you're absolutely right.
But are we in the next 5 to 10 years, are we going to experience a flood of Kodak moments?
Eventually.
Oh yes. I need to end here, because I think that we are right now at a very crucial time where actually the entire VC-founded companies bubble is about to burst.
Yes.
Okay.
So we had this conversation.
I'm very, very, very interested to see what is going to happen this year.
Yeah.
So so here we have the maybe we need to frame if you're going to go there. I mean, like what in the news we've had a lot of discussions, like the big VCs are basically going out and say, take care of your VC funds right now. Don't expect any more capital to your runways for the next year.
The Klarna moment.
The Klarna moment we can talk about now. And all of this is showing up that sort of, okay, now we're getting into maybe some more turbulent times, maybe economic recession, but something fundamental happened in the VC community. And what do we know what sparked it? Why did it come now? Is it some sort of economic recession around the corner that is sparking the bubble? Why is that whole VC? Why is it happening right now? That's my question.
I'm not very sure of why is it, but it was long time
overdue. Yeah.
And the point was that you have like basically most of these companies are so in the past 15 years, how the economy was run on a global scale was basically investing in the companies that can scale the most, not the ones that can actually earn the most.
Exactly.
Right? And I believe that after so many times people have realized we're just burning money. We're just burning cash. And there is no end for it. And some people made money and some people not. It's like a Bitcoin. You made money when you basically put the 200 crowns and then now you made 200 million out of it. If you invest right now, probably people will comment on this and as well, but it's too late. You could have made the money when it was, and the game was there, and now it's going to something else. I mean, you cannot invest for a company. Let's talk about the example. So we have it in the event industry. We have a company that was valued 0, and then during 6 months during the pandemic, it was valued on $6.5 billion. $6.5 billion, right? The biggest event tech company in the world. Pandemic is over. What is that company worth now? In terms of cash, 0. There is nothing there. So what did we do with the 6.5 billion? Can people still invest in that? How long can you invest in that? So I think this is basically what is coming. Like people started realizing, and because of the corona and now the inflation that we have, it's easy seeable where you need to cut costs. And this is I think that it's going to be a very interesting year. We will see a lot of VC-funded companies, even in the data and AI era, that basically have done very great innovations, but not enough customers. They will just simply disappear. Or the technology is going to be bought by somebody else and put out into the rub like never existed.
What do you think?
I'm always very dystopian about this, but it's like...
In fact, I wanted to make a transition to the third point that you were saying previously, something about are we using AI for the good purpose and stuff like that? Yeah. Yes. So I would like to talk about Tom Cruise.
Oof, really?
Yeah. Not about Top Gun.
Actually, I want to see that one.
Yeah, I want to see it as well. No, but
really
the reason why I bring it up is really deep fakes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, deep fakes. So back to your question, Anders. I think there's a lot of things in motion right now, and I think some of them are fun. Making a great animation of Tom Cruise. There are some awesome ones out there, and in fact, the company behind that, Metaphysics, they started off their own company after that, and I can't remember the name, but there's a terminology now when it comes to virtual persons who doesn't exist, more or less. It's fascinating, and they're starting to develop like the ethics around that. So, it's a little bit scary because you don't know if the person you are kind of watching on TV or whatever is just an AI person.
Some avatar in the metaverse.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So check that out. It's very fascinating. On the topic Tom Cruise and misusing AI eventually.
I actually seeing, I watch a lot of podcasts on YouTube, etc. And you can see on YouTube this kind of YouTube shorts. It's like a minute or two small video clips, and I very, very frequently, like daily almost, get some kind of deep fake with Elon Musk saying, here is another Bitcoin competitor. If you just invent 10% in this, you get a 50% return. And it's often rather poor deepfake. You can see this, the voice
Glitches.
is not really... Yeah, exactly. The voice is not really speaking. But still, there is so much of it, and that will increase. And
Stop Googling Elon Musk. It's going to get
Yeah.
how can you do that? It's not possible.
But there was another deepfake in Tom Cruise, and that was positive. It was Val Kilmer.
Yes,
right.
that's
So
true.
he is basically he is not able to speak.
Yeah.
So they artificially make the voice. So he can be able to say at least 2 to 3 words, I think.
He had
It was
like
not
throat cancer or something?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. So he basically begged the director to be on that movie again, and it was great. They made like a very big story around him when you see the movie.
Don't spoilers.
So there is no spoiler alert, but there is a scene, and you will find it when you see it. So basically, he's sick and he cannot speak, and they use the artificial intelligence actually to simulate his voice based on the previous movies that he has done. So to
so
him to
speech
be able to
synthesis
speak.
from...
Yeah.
He was
and
called,
that was fantastic, I think.
it was Iceman, or what was his name?
Iceman.
Right.
Now, is the movie out? Is the movie out already?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh my God, I missed
man.
it. Okay.
Awesome. We have to try to wrap it up. It's been going far too long.
This is the record. You're beating the record, Jens.
Yeah.
That's a good final episode.
Yes,
Thank you
it
for
is.
this.
Yeah.
Jens, what's next in your life? What's happening coming weeks for you, privately, professionally? I guess vacation or something, or what's coming up?
What's coming up, really, I'm looking forward to the summer break here, to spend time with family. You know, as I started off with, we have some plans, and that's more, top of mind right now. Of course, I hope to wrap everything up at work as well, to get the last bits and pieces in place for my organization, which is going to be quite important for the journey ahead, so to say.
Yeah, please do help in making sure Electrolux keeps ahead of the tech giants and makes another awesome Swedish company that will be leading in the future of data and AI.
Absolutely.
Anyone that you would recommend to have on this podcast, someone that you would like to listen to for us to interrogate?
Absolutely. I know a lot of people that would be candidates for sitting here with you guys, but I want to be a little bit equalized, so to say. So I'm going to bring up 2 names. First of all, I would like to Matilda Engdahl, which I hired for Axfood. In fact, she's still working there, but she's a manager for the analytics there. So I would like to have her sitting here with you guys. But also I would like to recommend Dawn Sommer, someone I've learned to know a number of years ago.
Like Dawn Sommer? Or?
Dawn Sommer, yeah, that's right. So he has a background from Gartner, and now I guess he's working for Click, but he has extremely good knowledge about this business and this industry. But he's an awesome storyteller, and maybe if you're lucky enough, you might hear his story about what happened on Iceland. I won't say any more. That's a cliffhanger. No, he has a great story on analytics when it comes to Iceland and what they have done there. So I won't say any more.
Oof, we really have to get him on. He's on the top of the list.
That's how you sell.
I know Dan, so Dan, if you're listening, we're coming after you.
We are coming after you. And Jens know we were chasing for 6 months. So it will happen.
Sure.
Jens, it's been a true pleasure to have you here. I'm looking forward to the after work now to continue speaking about all the amazing topics. And so thanks so much for coming here. And best of luck.
It was great. It took a little bit too long time to get here, though. But better late than never.
I think we're going for 250. So you felt the need to deliver. I like it.
I do. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank
I
you,
appreciate it.
Jens, so
Thank
much.
you very much.